My ground is getting cold. Look at the soil temps this morning. We're still in the shade and it's still dawn. 36. Once the sun comes over here, it'll warm up probably in the low 40s. But it's chilly. Once November rolls around, it's time to start thinking about winterizing the lawn if you haven't already. There's a good number of ways to winterize the lawn, and there's a lot of different opinions, sometimes contradictory opinions on what to do and when to do it and what to apply. Some people don't think that you should winterize your lawn at all. What I want to focus on today is one of the most misunderstood parts of fall lawn winterization. In my opinion, if you understand this, then everything else starts to make sense. Now, before we get too deep, let's quickly talk about the reasons for winterizing your lawn in the late fall. Predominantly, there's three main thought processes. One, if we put down fertilizer late in the fall, we could be attempting to stimulate one last growth push. A second way of looking at this is we want to put nutrients into the lawn so that they can get absorbed into the root systems of our plants just as they're going dormant. That way they have nutrients available through dormancy so that the grass can start growing again efficiently in the early parts of spring. The third way of looking at lawn winterization is to actually fertilize the soil itself, not actually expecting any of the nutrients to get into the plant, but rather to stay in the soil until spring. All right, for the purpose of this video, I don't care what product you use. These are literally just the products that I'm using. I'm not trying to tell you what's right for you. For me, I would be putting down only Jonathan Green on my lawn, but I don't have enough to put the whole thing down. The reason I'm choosing this is because it's a 1001, and I believe I have already put enough phosphorus on my lawn for the whole year. So I don't really want any more, but I don't have enough of this to cover the whole lawn. So to cover the whole lawn, I'm gonna add in my Scott's Natural Lawn Food, which is an 11-2-2. So I'm getting a little bit of phosphorus, but when I mix it together with this, it's a pretty negligible amount. Ordinarily, you wouldn't be mixing products like this. It just kind of overcomplicates the thing. But again, I just don't have enough in my bag, and I didn't have the foresight to go buy another bag in advance. No matter which way it is that you think about lawn winterization, it's important to note that urea fertilizer is not really the best thing to put down as temperatures get cold right before your lawn starts going dormant. The reason for that is you're going to have an enormous amount of loss, nitrogen loss, throughout the next coming season. Now, to kind of touch on the science behind that, nitrogen is lost three different ways predominantly. Volatilization is one of the main mechanisms for loss, especially late in the fall or very early in the spring. Volatilization is one of the main ways that nitrogen is lost in fertilizer applications. That is the process of putting fertilizer down and then letting it all go right back up into the atmosphere as a gas. There are many different environmental factors that speed up or slow down the process of volatilization, but late in the fall, because soil temperatures are usually quite cold, it's common to have wet soil and dry air. That's certainly what we have around here this time of year. When you put down urea fertilizer onto a wet soil surface and you've already had your sprinkler systems shut off, you're going to end up experiencing a lot of volatilization. A lot of that urea is going to gas off, and a lot of the nitrogen is going to be lost up into the atmosphere. What does make it into the soil eventually starts the process of nitrification. Enzymes in the soil turn that urea into ammonia, and then the nitrification process starts. The problem here is once soil temperatures are below 45 degrees, as they frequently are in many cool season lawns after November, the soil microbiology needed to start that nitrification process has already kind of gone to sleep already. It's too cold for it to be active enough to really get the process going. So within the soil, now we have the risk of leaching, which would be the nutrients getting pushed through the soil structure below the root zone and becoming unavailable because the plants can't reach them. Here we are, middle of the afternoon, and soil temps in the warmest part of my yard have only made it up to 42 degrees today. But a side benefit of doing this is I'm getting a wider variety of natural fertilizer ingredients put onto the lawn, which is a pretty good thing. I mean, when you have variety in the lawn, then that's going to stimulate a variety of life, and everything is going to become plant available at different times because they'll break down at different speeds. For instance, in the Scott's Natural, the majority of this product is based on feather meal, meat meal, bone meal, blood meal, and then sulfate of potash. Jonathan Green also uses feather meal, soybean meal, blood meal, sulfate of potash, and we also get some calcium carbonate. So the difference here is this is using blood meal, this is using meat meal, and there's slight differences in the concentrations. Not that big of a deal. The bone meal in the Scott's product is what's giving me the phosphorus for this application. Now, bag rate on the Scott's product is pretty high, and the bag rate on the Jonathan Green is pretty low. So when I mix these things together, I gotta do basic math in an Excel file. I'm not gonna go into that math right here. Maybe I'll make another video down the road to explain how that works. But basically, I'm gonna scale the bag rate down by 1/4 for this, and I'm gonna scale the bag rate down for 1/2 for this, and that's going to combine, I got my notes here, that's gonna combine to give me 0.37 pounds per 1,000 square feet of nitrogen, which is a pretty small application. It's also gonna give me 0.036 of phosphorus and 0.053 of potassium to go onto the lawn. All of it's coming from natural and organic plant and animal-based sources. It's all pretty much gonna sit in the lawn throughout the winter while the fungal activity, the beneficial fungal activity in the lawn, prepare it and make it plant available by the end of the winter. The other process of loss is denitrification. So we want nitrification so that we can get plant available nitrogen. But if it's in the soil for a long time and it gets deeper and deeper, if soils get waterlogged over the winter, denitrification becomes an issue, and that's the opposite. That's where in an anaerobic environment, the ammonia that's in the soil, instead of turning into a nitrate, which is plant available, it will turn into a nitrogen gas and eventually be released back into the atmosphere. If throughout the course of the winter, some of that ammonia is able to nitrificate, turn into a nitrate the way it's supposed to, the roots of your grass system are already fully dormant, and they are unlikely to take up that nitrate into the plant system. They're already dormant. Even if you're applying in November, it might take too long to become plant available, and then it's just going to sit in the soil and be subject to leaching because nitrates are very easily lost. So all of this is to say, if we're going to be putting down a urea-based nitrogen fertilizer in the month of November to winterize the lawn, almost none of it really is likely to be used by the plant now or in the springtime. And a lot of it is not going to stay in the soil due to leaching or gassing off. Not only that, but urea-based fertilizers, when they're applied to the lawn, almost never come with an organic ingredient that adds to the organic component of our soils, of our lawn soils. When our lawn soils have more organic matter in it, then they are better able to hold on to ammonia. In that ammonia state, the nitrogen actually bonds to the soil particles and will stay there. They won't leach out and they won't gas off. Now I'm going to get back to the gassing off by dovetailing into synthetics. So if you're going to put down an ammonium sulfate fertilizer as your winterizer, that is a very fast release nitrogen source that is going to be plant available even when your soil is very cold. If your grass isn't dormant yet, the root systems can uptake that without the use of soil biology. So that is a way of getting one last growth push in, so long as your lawn isn't quite yet dormant. Not only that, but ammonium sulfate is not going to gas off the same way that urea is. It is far less susceptible to volatilization, unless of course you're putting it down on a highly basic lawn, something calcium carbonate, or maybe you limed it, maybe you've just got high alkalinity. The higher the pH is, then the more volatilization risk that you have. But most people putting ammonium sulfate down on the lawn are not going to experience a lot of volatilization. It's still not going to reside in the soil for a very long time. So if you're putting down ammonium sulfate in the late fall, it's probably not going to be available for your plant in the springtime, because it's either going to be used immediately right now, or you're going to end up having some loss due to leaching throughout the winter season. Now, the heavier clay soil that you have, maybe if you have a high CEC soil structure with a lot of organic matter, you might not leach nearly as much, but it is certainly a risk. Now, in my opinion, I don't think that there's any reason to be trying to push our grass to grow once soil temperatures have gotten cold enough that our grass is starting to show signs of wanting to go dormant. In my opinion, that's a stress on the grass that's completely unnecessary. I also don't think that it's worth putting down a urea-based fertilizer, even if it's called a winterizer or a fall fortify or whatever it would be, because a lot of it is going to go to waste. It's not going to push growth now, and it's unlikely to have enough in the tank come springtime to make any noticeable difference. So that brings me to what I'm going to be doing this year and potentially for the years to come. I'm going to be putting down a plant and animal sourced product. I'm not putting down chicken poo, and I'm not putting down cow manure on my lawn or anything like that. I'm going to be putting down an organic fertilizer that's going to go into the lawn that is predominantly made of plant and animal sourced nitrogen. To do things like this, you really should be using a kitchen scale. You could eyeball it, but a kitchen scale makes things a little bit easier. Now with my measurement, I could mix this together, but I'm not going to. I prefer putting things down this once and then this once, and that gives me even spread of both, because the granular size on both of these things is going to be different. This is the Jonathan Green. Now the average casual lawn owner is going to quickly say, wait a second, none of that fertilizer is going to get broken down in a lawn that is very cold, especially for northern lawns where our soil temperatures could be in the mid to low 40s in the month of November. I would have to agree. The soil biology, the microbiology, we're talking about the microorganisms, are going to be asleep enough that they're not going to break the product down. But that is good for volatilization, because a product that has not yet broken down, that's still sitting on top of the soil, is not going to gas off. We're not going to lose the nitrogen to the atmosphere. It's also not going to leach out of the yard soil because it hasn't broken down quite yet. So what's the point in putting it down? Because microbiology in the form of bacteria and organisms are not the only important thing in our lawns. We also have beneficial fungi, and you can break fungi into 4 distinct groups. There are the undesirable fungi that cause diseases. There are symbiotic fungi, kind of like mycorrhiza, that live within the root systems or around the root systems, extending their reach and causing this symbiotic relationship. There are other kinds of fungi that can reside within the plant itself, but not in a pathogenic sort of way, but in a helpful sort of way, kind of like how we have bacteria in our gut and it helps our guts perform better. Then on top of that, there are fungi that fall into the decomposers category, kind of like bacteria and microorganisms break down material in the lawn. Fungi can do that as well. Now with the Jonathan Green down, I'll put my Scott's product down, and that will be my winterizer for the year. This is how Scott's looks. A little bit different, a little bit not quite as dark and black. So when I start talking about putting down an organic fertilizer on the lawn in the cold season or going into the cold season, I'm relying on the decomposers in my lawn to slowly incorporate the fertilizer into the soil structure and break it down slowly over the winter. The entire point is to break it down slow enough so that it turns into an ammonia and binds itself to the soil late in the winter. And then as the nitrification process slowly ramps up towards the end of winter, it can start moving into the plant before it leaches out. Because as I've said in past videos, when our lawns emerge from winter dormancy, it's the root system that emerges before the leaf canopy. Towards the end of winter, our root systems become active again before we can even tell walking the lawn from atop. Now, it's certainly possible for the nitrification process that's going to happen later in the winter to turn a lot of the material into a nitrate that gets leached away, but it's far less likely to happen. And if it does happen, those nitrates will not leach away nearly as fast. We are technically adding organic matter to our soil in a very small way every time we fertilize, and that's only going to help the soil biology in terms of the microorganisms and the fungi to increase over time, and it will also help expand our lawn's ability to hold nutrients. The more organic matter that we can put into the soil itself will allow that soil to hold more nutrients longer.
And then it seems silly, but I'm going to water it in anyway because I don't want it sitting on leaf blades. I want it sitting on the soil surface because that's where the fungi is, and that's what's going to break it down, make it a plant available by the spring.
Denitrification happens in the soil when it is compacted, waterlogged, not aerated. Your lawns need oxygen in there, and that's why I am a huge proponent of mechanical core aeration. I mechanically aerated my lawn 2 times in 2021, and I manually core aerated the lawn in 2020. I will continue to mechanically core aerate the lawn for many years to come, and I recommend that you do as well. So long as we have a lawn that is aerated, it is aerobic, it's an aerobic environment, then the microorganisms in the lawn are going to be working in our favor. Manually core aerating a lawn is extremely physically demanding. I've done it, and I've made an entire video about it. Mechanically core aerating your lawn is a little bit more expensive, but totally worth it. And I've also done that and made a video about that as well. I'm going to go ahead and apply my fertilizer to the lawn today because it's the only dry day of the week. But I recommend that you watch this video about mechanical core aeration and how to get the job done, because I recommend doing it at the end of winter before the grass really starts growing.